Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Vice President and General Manager, Security and Risk Business Unit, Sean Convery.
Good morning. I thought I'd start with an embarrassing story. I joined ServiceNow in August of 2015, specifically to lead the security business unit. And we had no product when I joined. We actually shipped the product at the RSA conference in early 2016. But later that spring, I was called into my boss's office, and he said, "You know, I'm starting to hear some rumblings about the integration of security and risk, and I'd really like you to take ownership of our GRC product." And the GRC product at the time had not gotten a ton of investment, and I was singularly focused on security. It was what I had done my entire career. And it's kind of embarrassing to admit this, I said no thank you. And it seems so obvious now in a room full of people to hear about the integration of security and risk. When I hear from all of you, when I've been traveling around talking to customers, I hear about the value of security and risk talking together. You're going to hear a great story about our security capabilities, our risk capabilities, and a demo for how they all come together. We now have hundreds of customers using our security operations capability, hundreds of customers using our governance, risk, and compliance product, and Gartner recently awarded us the Magic Quadrant in the integrated risk management space, only the third Magic Quadrant that ServiceNow had been awarded at that time. So I'm incredibly excited about the risk capabilities that we've been able to develop over these last few years, and I think you're going to like what we're going to show today. But I also wanted to mention the IT and security linkages. So those of you who have noticing how we're changing, how we're positioning ServiceNow as a company, we talk about IT workflow products, customer workflow products, and employee workflow products. So security and risk has fallen underneath IT. And I want to explain why I'm so excited about that. This is absolutely not a reduction in investment in security and risk at all. In fact, we are dramatically growing the engineering headcount devoted to security and risk over the course of 2019. What it is a recognition that for most organizations, even though security is a separate discipline, oftentimes security reports into the CIO organizationally. So from a purchasing standpoint, from an overall story standpoint, there was some value there. The second thing we noticed, particularly for our vulnerability response product, is that the value to IT is as big as the value to security. In fact, we've had situations where vulnerability response was bought by IT without security's participation. And so there's a lot of benefit there. And then the third piece, which you'll hear more about tomorrow during Pablo Stern's IT keynote on the main stage, is DevOps and the future of Mode 2 application development really requires that security be a part of the tool chain, be a part of the process. The idea that you can do a waterfall security process where you develop your application from start to finish and then you call in the security folks to say it's okay, and invariably they don't have enough time to test and they do their testing and say, actually I found these 10 issues and because they have to ship in a week, you fix 2 of them and defer 8 of them. That model never worked, but it certainly doesn't work when you're pushing to production 5 and 10 times a day or a week. And so I see a future where DevOps integrates security into the fabric of how we deliver technology as a whole. And so those are the two ideas I wanted to leave you with. What I'd like to do now is tell you about what we're going to talk about in the next 40 minutes or so. So we're going to start out with a keynote focused in on our security technology, delivered by our head of security products, Lou Fiorello. We're also going to hear, following Lou, the same conversation about our risk capabilities from our new risk leader. And then lastly, we'll get into a detailed demo on how we are delivering security, risk, and IT in an integrated way. So with that, I don't want to waste any more time giving you the preamble. Let's bring up Lou Fiorello to talk more about what we're doing in security. Lou.
Good morning, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. And so I have responsibility for our security products that includes both solutions both focused on security, incident management, and response, as well as vulnerability management and response. And we'll talk about both of those as we go through the next 10 minutes. But first, let me take a step back and talk about what we're hearing from our customers. So I spend about a third of my time talking to customers. I'm sure I've met many of you in the audience today. And there have been some common trends, common themes over the last year or so. The first is that I often hear from customers, I don't have enough visibility into my security posture today and how it's trending. What is my risk? What's my SLA adherence? I remember I had a customer conversation at this event last year, and this customer was using multiple technologies in the Security Operations Center, and it took them over 30 days to generate a report to understand their SOC effectiveness. 30 days. And so by the time they got that data, it was out of date, and it was obviously an expensive process. The next thing I hear is about manual work, right? And I want to call out one example in particular. I oftentimes hear in the vulnerability management process, getting the vulnerabilities from the vulnerability scanners to the IT teams, the Windows teams, the Linux teams, maybe the application teams, to actually do the work is an incredibly manual process. One customer I talked to, they had one person doing this. They got an email with a spreadsheet with thousands of lines, and oftentimes they just couldn't do anything with it. They didn't have the time. They threw it out. They deleted it, waited for the next one. Another customer, slightly more well-resourced, they had a team of 10 handling this problem, right? 10 people focused on getting vulnerabilities to the right IT teams. Incredibly manual, incredibly expensive. And the third thing I often hear, and this is probably the most common, is how do I reduce my security risk, right? Am I focusing on the right incidents? Am I focusing on the right vulnerabilities? How do I do more with the resources I have today? We have great outcomes with our customers. I've talked to customers that are using our solutions that get up to 75, 80% reduction in vulnerability response time, in total vulnerabilities in their environment. Similarly on the security incident side. But how can we help them, how can we help more customers achieve those outcomes? So let's talk a little bit about our purpose and vision. So the purpose of our company, ServiceNow, is to make work better for people. We've taken that and applied it to security operations, and we want to help our customers improve their operational effectiveness and security posture by 10x. That's our goal. And so how do we do that? There's 4 key areas that I want to walk you through. The first is simply gaining visibility. What's my security posture? How is it trending? But that's just the starting point, right? Then we want to help you prioritize incidents and vulnerabilities based on risk to your organization. And then improve remediation throughput, right? Once you're focusing on the right stuff, the right incidents and vulnerabilities, how do you get more through the pipe with the resources that you have today? And obviously, automation is a key part of all of that. And we have an advantage in the security business unit, potentially an unfair advantage, because we're sitting on the ServiceNow platform. And in the platform, there's the CMDB. And asset awareness is the foundation to any good security program. And it also enables collaboration between security and IT. And we'll talk a little more about that as we go through the examples. So let's dig into each of these areas, starting with visibility. I've got a couple examples in visibility. The first is our business service dashboard and our vulnerability response product. This came out in Madrid. It's out now. And what it enables you to do is look at your business services and your associated vulnerability risk. How is it trending? Am I hitting my SLAs? And how those services compare across the organization, right? That gives you the information and arms you with the ability to have the right conversations across the company to improve the situation. We're also launching a native mobile experience in New York, coming in New York, for both security incident and for vulnerability, right? So if I'm out on the weekend and there's a critical incident, critical vulnerability that happens, you know, I can look into the details on my phone. If I'm not the right person to start work on it, I can assign it to the right person. From a prioritization standpoint, we've always helped customers focus on prioritizing vulnerabilities via asset criticality, business context, and vulnerability severity. With Madrid, we've added threat landscape awareness in the form of exploit enrichment. Is there an exploit available for this vulnerability or not? Right? What's the skill level required to exploit the vulnerability? In our data, we've seen somewhere between 12 and 25% of vulnerabilities have exploits, only 12 to 25%. So this is a great step forward in prioritizing what's risky for your organization. All right, let's move into remediation. And this is probably the area I'm most excited about, both in terms of vulnerability and in terms of security incident. Let's start with vulnerability. One of the key features we're launching in New York, we're calling vulnerability solution management. And essentially what this does is it gives us the ability to correlate vulnerabilities with the solutions that address those vulnerabilities, the fixes, the patches, in a structured way. And we're pulling that information directly from third-party software vendors, starting with Microsoft in New York, and this enables a number of use cases for our customers. On the security side, it enables the security teams to look at remediation and solution progress in their dashboards, and that's what you see here. Solution progress, this is Microsoft Patch Tuesday in February solutions, inferred by vulnerability scanner results. On the IT side, it helps the IT persona select the right solution to address the vulnerability with supersedence awareness, so they can always select the latest and greatest solution. So really excited about that feature. And then similarly, on the security incident side, and this is available today, this was launched in Madrid, we've worked with the platform team to incorporate Flow Designer. And so there's both a build experience on your left, as well as the analyst experience, or working the ticket experience on your right. In the past, what we've seen is that security teams oftentimes didn't have scripting knowledge, didn't know how to script on the platform. And so they had to engage the IT teams in order to build these workflows, build these playbooks. And that process could be iterative, and it could take a while. And we've given security teams the control with Flow Designer to create and edit their own playbooks. There's no longer a need to engage IT. And on the right, you can see the experience as the analyst is working the ticket. They can see, where am I in this workflow? What's the next step in the process? And they can pull up additional information via associated KB articles. So really excited about both of these remediation features. So moving into integrations. So we've always had integrations, ingestion integrations, for SIMs into security incident, for vulnerability scanners into vulnerability response, but we're continuing to evolve those in terms of time to deploy, in terms of user experience. We recognize that getting the right data in the right place easily is the foundation for all downstream workflow and automation. So we're continuing to evolve those integrations. We already talked about enrichment integrations that we're adding, threat and exploit intelligence, vulnerability solution management, starting with Microsoft. And then on the orchestration side, on the action side, I'm proud to say that we now have gold standard benchmarks in each of firewall, endpoint, and email categories to help you respond to incidents faster and with more uniformity. And by the way, if we don't offer the integrations ourselves, or our partners don't, CJ talked this morning about Integration Hub. We've got a great tool set that you can use to build your own integrations. So that's Madrid and New York. Let's talk a little bit beyond that. 4 key things I want to hit. The first is cross-application workflows. One example is we're working with vulnerability response and software asset management based on the software installed in your environment, to better address or quickly address and understand exposure to a critical vulnerability when it comes out. Revamped user experience. We're moving to the agent workspace technology you also saw in the keynote to provide more uniformity of experience across the platform, building on all the key user interaction work we've already done to date. Artificial intelligence. We're working on security incident. The most common incident type tends to be phishing, user-forwarded phish, and there's a lot of noise in there. So how can we remove a lot of those false positives, a lot of the emails that we know are not phish from the analyst queue? And last, application vulnerability management. How do we extend from infrastructure vulnerabilities and secure configuration assessment today up to the application level. So what does this all mean for you? To bring it back to the beginning, we're doing all this, delivering in Madrid and New York to help you understand the risk to your business, gain visibility, improve staff productivity, right, reduce manual work, and ultimately the end game is to reduce security risk via prioritization and efficiency gains. So thank you very much. I'm now going to introduce Vasant, who runs our risk products.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I joined ServiceNow about a month ago. It's been a crazy 5 weeks. Thanks, Sean. But while I am new to ServiceNow, I'm not new to GRC. I've been in this space building GRC products for over 10 years now. And I can honestly say, never been more excited. We're already tackling some pretty difficult challenges for our customers today. But with HR, IT, the lines of business, and risk and compliance on the same platform, we're going to be able to do some pretty amazing things for our customers. A couple of weeks ago, I was speaking to a CIO of a major city's transportation system. He is putting together a digital backbone that spans traffic information, parking data, public transport, ride-share information. He is pulling together data from different agencies. He is sending out data to third-party vendors on the web. And he is putting mobility in the hands of his riders. And understandably, he is concerned about digital risk across all of these different areas. Now, he's not alone. As our customers drive digital transformation across HR, IT, and across the different lines of business, they're concerned about the growing digital risk. Now, what other challenges are our customers facing? One of our large customers, a large European bank, does business in the US, in Canada, in the UK, and of course Europe. And they are subject to US Fed, Canadian AMF, UK FCA, GDPR, UK SMCR, and a whole bunch of other acronyms, regulations. And this keeps changing. The regulations keep changing, and the costs keep going up. Global compliance is expensive. But frankly, non-compliance is much more expensive. Now, that European bank worrying about global compliance, well, there are different lines of business, there are different functions across the world. They're all handling risk and compliance in their little silos across the place. And so this bank is really concerned, are they missing any critical compliance obligations that they may have? Now, the last thing that we hear from our customers, and in some ways probably one of the most important ones, is risk and compliance is not top of mind for employees. This is not what people wake up every day worrying about. They're worrying about building products, making more money for the business, and they're worrying about their, saving money for the business and building products. But they're not worried about risk and compliance. So how do we help bake risk and compliance into what people do on a daily basis? How do we, ServiceNow, help you do that? Well, as John said today morning, our purpose, our vision, is to help you make work better for people. Here at ServiceNow GRC, our goal, our vision, is to seamlessly embed risk management and compliance into digital workflows so people and businesses work better. ServiceNow GRC's vision is to be the risk and compliance backbone for your digital transformation, for your organizations. Now, that sounds great. What does it actually mean? It can mean several things, but there are two things I'm going to pick. First, it means we will seamlessly embed GRC workflows into your day-to-day activities. So for instance, your CEO logs a service request and says, I want a non-standard software on my laptop. Well, that automatically triggers a risk assessment that says, is she allowed to have this on her laptop? Should I? Second, we will seamlessly leverage the same data sets that you're already creating across the enterprise, across the CMDB, HR approvals, finance, legal, all the other operations that you're putting into ServiceNow and beyond, and use them to continuously drive risk and compliance monitoring, to create actionable dashboards for the CISOs, for the CIOs, for the line of business owners, and for you. Fantastic. How do we make it all real now? What's the next step, right? So how do we turn that vision into reality? First, we will relentlessly automate things to the largest extent that we can. This means we will continue to build out the risk and control monitoring capabilities that we built out, and we will have deeper integrations into all the other ServiceNow products, ITOM, ITSM, HR products across the board, so information automatically comes in. Second, we will invest in the user experience, in core capabilities, community, best practices, right? So that you can engage your employees better, and so you can actually drive GRC program adoption better. This is a very critical challenge for our customers, and this is really important. Third, we will continue to invest in our core use cases for enterprise risk, operational risk, regulatory compliance, internal audit, IT risk, cyber risk, across the board. And fourth, we will focus on the technology, advisory, and implementation partnerships that you're going to need to actually fully roll out your GRC program, because it's going to be pretty broad. And all of this on our platform that we're very excited about. You heard this today from John, from CJ, a lot of fantastic innovation coming in there, so it's going to be great. Now, it's important to note, we're doing all of these things in some ways today. All these themes are real even today. So let's have a quick look at what we released in Madrid and what's coming up in New York along these themes. First, in Madrid, we released continuous risk monitoring. You can now set up indicators across the system within ServiceNow and beyond, and use that to continuously update your risk rating. So this is not something that you wait 6 months to get an updated risk rating on. This now happens on monthly basis, weekly basis, daily basis. So you're on it. Second, mobility. We are excited about mobility. And you saw John say that today, too. Policy and compliance app for the policy manager, for the compliance manager, for the risk manager, so you can approve policy exceptions and policies on your phones. Third, risk hierarchy and roll-ups. The nature of risk, when you look across the enterprise, is incredibly complex. Assets inform, the risk ratings inform services, inform processes and products, informs lines of business. Those are the business outcomes, right? And so now we can model all of that in the system to roll up the risk ratings across all of this and make it relevant for your business users. And we're building out accelerators for NIST, GDPR, available in the New York release, help you roll out these programs faster. And finally, we work with a third-party vendor, RiskLens, to deliver cyber risk quantification based on the FAIR methodology. This is available now. It was in the Madrid release. In addition to these, there are a few other things we're working on. We're working on cross-app integrations, leveraging common data sets, building risk and control indicators, integrating workflows, creating shared dashboards. We're working on artificial intelligence use cases, and there's a lot. Pattern detection, recommendations, categorization, natural language chat for engaging the first line. And something I'm really excited about, we're working on revamping our user experience. And I'm sure everyone's going to be excited when that new user interface hits. And you're going to go, wow, this is so much easier. People are happy to use this. with all of this, what does it mean for you? It means that you get to tackle all those challenges we talked about at the beginning. It means you keep pace with your digital transformation and your risk. Help the business meet its business objectives. Second, it means you get to reduce your costs, your effort, and your compliance exposure. And third, you get to engage your employees and your business to help them drive decisions that are informed by risk. And you get to do this across the enterprise, across HR, security, IT, legal, lines of business, operations, everywhere. It's going to be exciting. Welcome to ServiceNow GRC. Sean, have Sean back on stage.
Thanks, Vasant. Please give it up for Lou and Vasant and the extraordinary group of product development teams around the world that have been building all these features. All right, so as I mentioned at the beginning, we wanted to try to bring this all home with a demo. What started out as a promise several years ago to tie these three organizations, security, IT, and risk, tightly together, is now something that we can deliver. So what you're going to see now is a mixture of Madrid and New York capabilities designed to focus in on how these three teams can deliver a seamless workflow across organizations. And I thought, since Vasant was already on stage, we might start with risk and take the standpoint of you as a risk manager in the line of business.
Yep, thanks, Sean. Okay, hi folks, I'm Vasant, and I am a risk manager at Acme Office Products. Our biggest seller are little paperweights shaped like little flying pigs, and it's a $100 million business. It's really popular. Now, I report to the chief risk officer, and my job is to keep an eye on our high risks. So I come in, and the good news is I have ServiceNow with continuous risk monitoring. And so when I come in today, I notice that I have 3 high risks on my dashboard. And well, when I looked at it yesterday, there were only 2, and I know someone is working on those. So I go, what's going on with this? Look at it, and I see that there is now a risk of loss of confidentiality in our online payment service. That is extra worrisome because most of our business, our lifeline, if you will, and that's how we do business, is online. So that better not be down. So I click in, and in nice red colors, there's a calculated score through the automated indicators that says my calculated annual loss expectancy with the high risk rating is over $11 million. I am concerned, understandably so, and want to find out more about what's going on. So I see that there's a vulnerability impacting confidentiality as a key indicator that's been set up on this risk. And I go click in, and I notice that this was running daily, but the latest run has turned out false. The last run failed. So I go, OK, why did that happen? And I noticed that there's an open vulnerability now, and it's under investigation. Now, I'm not a technical guy. I don't know what a vulnerability is, but it says vulnerability, so, and it says it's under investigation, so I hope someone's looking at it. Sean?
Sure, Vasant. So when I first heard customers tell me that risk was the North Star for security, this is what they meant. What you just saw Vasant do was start with a high-level business risk associated with a specific business service, and then drill immediately down into the specific vulnerability that was causing it. This kind of capability is simply not possible when you're manually building risk data in a spreadsheet or manually correlating them through disconnected tools. So Vasant, why don't we actually see what happens behind the scenes? You've noticed the risk at the business level. Let's bring Lou up to play the role of the vulnerability manager and showcase what's happening there.
Yep, thank you.
All right.
Help me.
All right, so I'm part of the security team. I manage the vulnerability program. And so I'm just getting in. I haven't had my cup of coffee yet, but let's see where I normally start here. This is the business service dashboard, right? I normally start here, check out what's happening. It's prioritized based on number of overdue critical vulnerable items. So what's missed SLAs? Right at the top of the list, there's the online payment service. So I know this is pretty critical. and it looks like there's been a big change. So let me dig in here and see what's happening. Let's see. 5 vulnerable items. Looks like the same vulnerability across 5 different CIs. Okay. Risk score is high, 90. And so I know this is critical because I've set these calculators. This is how I've defined risk to my organization, and it's a 90. So I know this is important. So let's look here into one of those vulnerable items. All right, so now this is interesting. It's telling me what the preferred solution is to apply, right, to address these vulnerabilities. Okay, great. So I know what I need to apply, or what the IT team needs to apply. And then let's go into the task. Oh, and before we do, though, we'll come back to this. This is the percent of VIs remediated related to the solution I just saw. I can see it's at 0, but I already knew that. And so if I go into the task here, I can see who owns these CIs and who owns the vulnerability resolution. Looks like it's the Windows support team, and it's Janine. And Janine's usually really good about this, so I'm not sure what's going on. So let me just type her a note to check into it and post that. Great. So isn't that great, Sean? So I've already got that assigned to IT.
That's terrific, Lou. So two things to point out there. One, obviously, this vulnerability solution capability. I'm really excited to see what's possible. Because ServiceNow caters to IT and security audiences, the fact that we can talk about vulnerability solution, which connects the two, is something that the traditional security industry hasn't really been able to focus on because they're selling mostly to the security folks. But the second thing I wanted to point out is something that those of you in the audience who are using vulnerability response will already be able to realize is we've been able to see exactly who gets the vulnerability on the IT side that needs to respond. So instead of handing over that 10,000-row spreadsheet to IT, you're able to see the specific individual in the specific group that's designed to respond to this vulnerability. And in this case, for some reason, there's an SLA that's expired. So why don't we bring up Janine? She happens to be here to help us figure out what's going on with this SLA. Hi, Janine. You look a little busy right now.
Yeah, Sean, you know, sometimes things happen, emergencies pop up, and it's really been one of those mornings already. So I start by logging into my remediation dashboard here. I work in IT. I'm taking care of all of this patching, rolling out all of these solutions. So this dashboard lets me know what I personally need to work on. So yes, I can see as I scroll down to my open list of vulnerability groups that, as you've been hearing people talk about, I've got one where I've missed the target. Sometimes things happen. We're running a little late today. So I'm going to jump right into this right now. So as I move into the vulnerability group here, I have all of the information that I need to be able to resolve this. And I also see I've got this note here from Lou asking me very nicely to hurry up. So let's take a look and jump in here.
I'm not sure he asked so nicely, Janine.
Lou's a nice guy, so it's all good. I've got this preferred solution here, and this is great. It's super helpful because it's telling me what it is I need to roll out in order to remediate this vulnerability. I don't have to do research. It's right here. So I can actually click into the solution to get a little bit more detail. We've got a lot of information that's coming straight from Microsoft that tells me what I need to do. So let's go back now. And with this information, I can now say we're awaiting implementation. I would then go ahead and create the change and get this taken care of. We're going to skip over that today, pretend it happened, and I'm going to mark this as resolved. So I just put in a quick note saying that I've applied the patch here, call it resolved, and I don't have to email or call anyone. It's going to automatically let them know that this has now been taken care of.
Wow, Janine. So I just want to point out something that I mentioned at the beginning, just how valuable vulnerability response is to IT teams. You just showed exactly why, right? Before, that 10,000-row spreadsheet would have given you a bad day as well, right? Because security would have said, hey, how come IT's not doing their job? You've got all these vulnerabilities. But now you're able to see the specific vulnerabilities that need to be addressed associated with specific services and have SLAs to understand what's going on.
Absolutely. I know everything I need to do, when it's due, and it's all prioritized for me.
Terrific. So why don't we actually bring Lou back on to show what it looks like from a vulnerability response manager now that you've addressed these vulnerabilities. All right, thanks, Janine.
All right, so now I've got my cup of coffee. So I'm ready to check back in on the status here. So this is the detailed view for my online payment service. This is where I was earlier. Now I can see these vulnerabilities are resolved. And if I click in and drill down here, I can see the solution view as well. 100% of VIs remediated related to that solution. So security and IT on the same platforms really made my job easy today.
That's awesome. So again, the power of the two systems connecting together, you now have the ability, instead of handing that spreadsheet over, to be very, very specific. In this case, you gave Janine a little note to kind of encourage her along the way. But the broader capability of these two platforms, or sorry, these two products sitting on the same platform is really incredible. So let's bring Vasant back up to show what it looks like from a risk standpoint, to see how he views it, again, from the business perspective, not a technologist. What does he see?
I'm mostly a very happy non-technologist now, because I'm reaching for my bottle of champagne. It looks like my risks are down to, high risks are down to 2. So thank you, Lou. Thank you, Janine, for making that happen. Now, as I'm looking at this, and I'm going, that sounds great, but you know, maybe it shouldn't have happened in the first case. What happened? So I do want to click down and have a look at the risk, and maybe open up an issue. So this is great. We identified the risk through continuous monitoring, but now I'm going, it shouldn't have happened. So I'm going to assign an issue to the appropriate owners, maybe in security. Maybe there was a control that was supposed to work in a specific way that did not. So now I assign work out to people so this doesn't happen the next time. Right? I'm covered now. Make sure I'm not, this doesn't happen again. So other than that, I'm just going to sit back, enjoy my champagne.
Excellent, excellent. So Vasant, you were able to then open this risk issue to be able to make sure that the organization understood that you had a particular risk event occur. And again, this is the sort of thing that, because you had real-time visibility into what was going on, it didn't show up on a quarterly assessment, somebody walking around, sending out questionnaires via email. This is live data that you were able to operate on and understand the business impact.
Absolutely, and I didn't have to run around after people either, so it's good.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Vasant. What do you think, everybody? So the one thing I want to point out about the demo you just saw is we showed security, IT, and risk working together. But there's no reason that particular continuous monitoring capability that Vasant was showing you, where it looked at a vulnerability, couldn't have been done off of any indicator, any field in the ServiceNow platform. So this has applicability to finance, to human resources, to essentially any business process where the data resides inside ServiceNow. You can have these kinds of risk indicators key off of information in the platform. So there's a couple things to take away. Obviously, we're making a lot better decisions through prioritization. You saw prioritization at the risk level, at the vulnerability level, at the business service level, and even at the solution level in terms of how to patch. We actually have an understanding of status between the various teams. And this is, again, something that I've heard from a lot of you has really been a struggle, is how these teams can communicate. And perhaps most of all, what I really want to reinforce is that we were able to go from risk to security to IT, back to security, back to risk. We never opened a conference bridge. We never sent an email. We never opened Microsoft Excel. It was all done in the platform. That's why I get so excited about being at ServiceNow, is because I look at all of the things that we can do as ServiceNow to help our customers automate a lot of the mundane processes that are really robbing you and your teams of time. And so I thought I'd just close by mentioning a couple of great sessions that we have coming up. If you're new to security, I really recommend you check out the Intro to Security Operations sessions, which happens immediately following this session. But if you're more advanced, the Flow Designer capabilities that CJ showcased on the main stage and Lou spoke a lot about, we've actually invested heavily in leveraging Flow Designer so you can build no-code playbooks inside of security operations. And we're actually going to highlight that on the main stage tomorrow with Pablo in the IT keynote. If you're more interested in hearing about GRC this morning, we have a great intro session again at the same time I'd recommend you check out. And then this continuous monitoring capability, as I mentioned earlier, the ability to key off of anything in the platform, not just security data, is something that we really think is going to be transformational in the risk and compliance space. And then last but not least, for those of you who enjoyed the security challenge last year, we have the security challenge, of course, in the pavilion. You can run that there, but we also have 2 dedicated labs where you can dive deep on what it feels like to be a SOC analyst working inside security operations. And it's a lot of fun. I always get a lot of great feedback from customers. So thank you so much. It's always such a treat to actually be here in front of our security and risk community. It's great, obviously, with the energy, with 20,000 people in the room, but it's humbling to see folks come out to showcase what they're doing in the platform throughout the rest of this conference and to hear from us. So thanks very much, and have a wonderful rest of the show.